Hello, my beautiful starseeds, light workers, and way showers. You are the ones that seeded the lost civilization of Atlantis. You are the ones that hold the memories and the light codes of Atlantis. And in this video, I'm going to help you awaken those memories, awaken the light codes to help you open up your spiritual consciousness and to help you in your ascension process. Those who are new, welcome. I'm Natasha, Cosmic Empress, West Coast, British Columbia. This is Canada. This is real. This is not green screen. And what better setting could there be to talk about Atlantis on this beautiful autumn day? That's where I am. This is where I live. Yes. Atlantis is real. Atlantis did exist. Atlantis was a continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and it was more than just another place that grew its civilization, that developed, that rose, that fell. It's way more than that. And all the information I'm about to reveal is first-hand information that I received from the Akashic records of Mother Gaia, specifically of Atlantis. But mainly, most of the information I will blend in that I received from different past lives that I've channeled from clients, a lot of you who I've worked with. And in the beginning I said you are the ones who seeded that lost civilization of Atlantis, because every single starseed that I have worked with, just about every single starseed, has had past lives in Atlantis. Because Atlantis is a place that is truly special in the whole history of our universe, not only of our beautiful Earth. When you hear that word Atlantis, it brings out deep emotions, deep resonance. Just thinking about Atlantis and that concept of that lost continent stirs up something deep within all of us, because we have been there. And those people who have not incarnated in Atlantis are part of that collective memory. Our collective holds very strong memories of that beautiful continent, and that's why it evokes such strong emotions in all of us. When I dove back into the Akashic records yesterday, what I saw was this. I wanted to get a completely new, fresh perspective from above, just to confirm where this place was and when it was. So Atlantis was a continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, just a little smaller than Australia. So it truly was a big continent, and it was pretty much in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So the southern part of it was subtropical, and the very southern part had some tropical climate zones. The northern part was just a little bit more temperate in climate. Atlantis had a lot of beautiful rainforest and more temperate forests. So most of Atlantis was covered with forests, and it was very green, very fertile, very lush. And it had a beautiful undulated coastline. Now, the times that I've been in Atlantis, that I've channeled past lives there, was at the point of the highest civilization of the times before Atlantis fell. That's where I've gone in, and that's what I've seen. So I have not seen the fall of Atlantis, and that is food for another video. So Atlantis was a place that was a little bit of an experiment. So at that time, which was about 50,000 years ago, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 years ago, that were the high times of Atlantis. That's what I channeled in the Akashic records, that time frame. The continent existed long before that, but that is the point in time where civilization was at its best, at its most developed. So before civilization started to rise in Atlantis, it was a bit of an experiment. And the first thing that I saw was a crystalline, beautiful light emitting from that place, going up into the universe. So the Earth already was a place that had caught the attention of many other starseeds out there. The Earth already was a point of interest for the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Andromedans, and many other starseeds as well. And Atlantis was a place where all the starseeds who wanted to come together, kind of like a melting pot, to get to know each other, to bring together all their talents, their technology, everything that each starseed had. This was to be the place where all the ones who were really interested in bringing together their knowledge and creating something beautiful, this was the place for that. So Atlantis was created, the concept was created actually in a high vibrational realm. So I see it as kind of like a contract that Mother Gaia made with other planets or the highly vibrational Earth people, right? There was a small group or many smaller groups. I see that now, like some of this knowledge is coming in as I speak because I've already tuned into the records. So I actually see smaller groups of very highly evolved human beings who had contact to other star beings who were very highly evolved, who had already ascended in their own individual journey. So it was kind of like the people from Earth and the people from the stars, including the planets who agreed to this, decided to create an experiment of a place where everybody could come together and create this intergalactic, beautiful society in 3D, on a 3D planet. And this was planned to be a place of light and creativity and people coming together in a melting pot. So it was like Atlantis was this utopia that was conceived before it was actually created. So Atlantis was planned. It wasn't just a random thing that happened. It wasn't just, oh, a civilization grew. No, I see that this was planned and all over this galaxy and other galaxies as well, other universes, parallel worlds. This concept of Atlantis was broadcast. And those who had pure intentions of love and light and bringing together all their knowledge came to participate. And that's why every single starseed that I've worked with you, I've worked with so many different kinds of people, all of you who've come to me for readings, as a plane goes overhead, all of you who've come to me for readings, you are all Hadarian, Mintakan, Orion starseeds, Arcturian, Pleiadian, Andromedan, Spican, Sirian, parallels, and so many more, so many more. I've worked with every single kind of starseed there is in the galaxy, I think, mostly. So all of you have such strong memories and such significant lives in Atlantis because you actually wanted to be part of this. You volunteered to be part of this. And that's why I'm saying light workers, way showers, because those who applied to incarnate in Atlantis were very, very special people. Were very, very special souls, right? You were souls who really wanted to contribute to creating something amazing and something great. And that's actually how it was. So the concept of Atlantis reverberates not only in our collective consciousness here, it reverberates throughout the universe, throughout the galaxy. It's a cosmic energy, it's a cosmic concept that did work for a long amount of time before it fell, before the experiment really went wrong, okay? And that's why Atlantis brings up such deep emotions in all of us. Now, Atlantis was a place that was very different than the other continents here on Earth and many other places, because this was a place where starseeds could incarnate in their true form. So going into Atlantis, I saw a lot of beings that were not in human form. I'm going to link the video up there, Mermaids of Atlantis, because the Mintakans, those water people, the mermaids, when their planet started to spiral down and was not inhabitable anymore, very many of those souls came to Atlantis, incarnated in their own form, in the form of mermaids and mermen, the mer people, to kind of test out Earth, to see if they liked it, and to participate in this experiment. That's why when we think of Atlantis, we think of the water people. We think that it's like a world underwater, which is partially true because there was a civilization of mer people that lived in the waters close to Atlantis, and that actually came into the cities and came onto land and intermingled and lived together with the human forms, the souls that incarnated as humans there. That's also why in Atlantis, highly conscious horse beings, centaurs, fauns, lived and incarnated there. Highly conscious beings from Alpha Centauri in form of horses, unicorns, and fauns. Highly conscious beings from Sirius, also in form of unicorns and dragons, incarnated there. So in Atlantis, if you look at the whole continent, you could find human beings, you could find mermaids, you could find centaurs, highly conscious horses, you could find fauns, you could find dragons, and all kinds of other beings, because part of the contract was, okay, we are a conscious starseed community, we are building something beautiful, we are on our mother planet Gaia, we are on Earth now, but we are able to actually take our physical form and see what it's like to create a society of absolutely different star races in their own physical form. Also, what I saw was, besides for the mermaids, we also had a lot of dolphins, whales, and fishes incarnating from Mintaka. So a lot of the ocean dwellers are actually from Mintaka. So some of the species are actually physical species from Mintaka who incarnated there in their physical form. Now don't ask me how this was possible. I don't know the actual genetics or the mechanics of how a soul could manifest in its true physical form instead of incarnating in a human body, but this was part of the contract, this was part of the experiment, and this is truly what happened. So, Atlantis, for tens of thousands of years, was a very successful experiment. So Atlantis developed a highly organized, functioning society that was very supportive. The first thing that I saw when I went in was a big, beautiful city. So when you imagine Atlantis with its round cities with rings, it's actually true. What I saw was a big city, the main city of Atlantis, in the south, but not right on the ocean, with a very warm climate, so the houses did not need heating, they didn't need windows. There was an inner ring where all the buildings were big buildings, big plazas, where people would go to do their work, to contribute, to walk around, to get supplies and things like that. And it was a beautiful architecture. There were gigantic plazas, and in those times civilization was so evolved that there was a lot of art and music as well. Then besides for the inner ring, you would have an outer ring of water with a lot of bridges going over it, and then you would have a ring of parks, trees and greenery. Then you would have another water ring, then a residential ring. So Atlantis was actually made of cities who were built in the perfect form, perfectly round, with concentric rings moving more and more out. So that meant that everybody who lived there would have direct access to water, to a park. There was always a beautiful view. You didn't have slums, you didn't have big, residential areas where people were crammed in. No, everything was planned beautifully and perfectly, and these were such harmonious cities, truly beautiful and harmonious. Now, Atlantis had a very highly advanced technology, because can you imagine the knowledge from the Sirians, from the Arcturians, from the Pleiadians, from the Andromedans, all the knowledge of technology, of energy, of crystalline use. So the cities of Atlantis were not only beautifully planned, very aesthetic, working well, they were also technologically very much advanced. Now I feel that the Atlanteans were very smart. They had highly advanced technology, but this did not interfere with the harmony and the beauty of the layout of the cities or of everyday life. So the Atlanteans managed to use their technology in a way that didn't make it look too artificial, because the Atlanteans understood the balance and harmony that is needed to keep connected to nature, to keep connected to the heart, and to use technology in a way that was not too intrusive. So the main technology was fed by gigantic crystals. So yes, it is true. In the main ring, in the inner ring, I saw a huge building, a very, very big building. And this building held a huge crystal in the center, and that was the main crystal, the main source of energy for the whole of Atlantis. It was a gigantic crystal, and I also saw that within Atlantis there are huge reservoirs of crystalline structures in the earth that could be extracted to be used for this technology. So the Atlanteans perfected the method of using crystals for energy. They were kind of like solar panels almost. The big crystal was able to receive energy from the sun, transmit it, and then store it in a grid of other types of crystals, and then use it. And this was very, very strong energy. This energy, only from this main crystal, could have had enough energy for the whole of the country. But what I did see was that there were smaller crystals in different places, in different cities, and even some households had their own crystal to receive energy from, to be independent. So there was actually a huge scientific team in Atlantis of the different starseeds who brought their knowledge together to create this grid of crystalline sourced energy. But not only that, it was an energy that was a little more intelligent. So because crystals hold memory, crystals are intelligent, I saw that these crystals were able to be programmed of how they would use this knowledge. It was partially also light codes, energy, knowledge that was transmitted from the sun. Some was used just for pure energy, and some was used in an intelligent way as well. Now, crystals were also used as computers. So I saw people walking around with like these kind of crystalline tablets and different gadgets made out of crystal. And they would actually hold the memories, and they would bring forth knowledge. So it was really, really interesting the way that Atlantis was developing with this crystalline technology. And several clients I've worked with were actually scientists. I saw a big room that was dark with different colors of glowing crystals, where they were kind of working with the intelligence and with the technology of these crystals. And it was truly fascinating how crystal technology could be used so different than here. I feel we're just using a very, very small portion of what is possible, the power of crystals, right? We use them in computers and quartz clocks. We use them in different ways, but truly the power of crystals is really, really amazing. And crystals are the gifts of Mother Gaia to us, right? Our Earth Mother has given us crystals to use, to develop, to make our lives easier. But at some point, this technology was misused, the knowledge was misused, the light codes were misused, and also the energy was misused. So in the end, yes, there was a disaster, there was an explosion, and basically Atlantis was destroyed. But that was at a later point in time. So if you can imagine this beautiful city with concentric rings, in the middle, beautifully architectured building, not more than 3 to 4 stories high. And in the very center, these big buildings with crystal works in them, and a huge, gigantic main crystal sticking out that could be seen from really far away. It was a clear color, but it had rainbow aspects to it. And actually, the color spectrum would change depending on the time of day. And I feel that this crystal also was able to move. Right? It was able to move depending where the sun was coming from to receive a maximum amount of energy and light codes. So a lot of activity revolved around this crystalline technology. And one client of mine when we regressed, he was actually an ambassador for the Crystal Works. And the Crystal Works also had a logo. It was a round logo with one big crystal and two small crystals on the side that I saw on those buildings and everywhere where crystal technology was used. So this client of mine who I regressed with, he was actually an ambassador for the Crystal Works. So he would travel throughout Atlantis to the different towns and cities and make sure that the energy was distributed equally, that everybody was up to date, that everybody could receive smaller crystals and start building their own crystal centers as well. So there was a lot around this crystal technology in Atlantis. The Atlanteans were very open, very social. They loved to wear bright colors and express themselves. The society wasn't as strict as here, that you had to, go to school, study, and go down a certain career path. It was very much more open and positive. And the Atlanteans all really were able to express their true gifts and talents. They were able to easily move from one career to the next, from one field of study or work to the next. So it wasn't that rigid. So I feel that the Atlanteans were all very, very well cared for. The ones who didn't really want to work, who wanted to contribute by, blessing the waters or going down their spiritual path, that was also possible. There was a lot of priests and priestesses as well in Atlantis. And because of the merging of all the different soul groups and starseeds, there was also a lot of magic. Yeah, Atlantis was a place of magic. Not the type of magic where you cast spells and interfere with someone else's free will. I feel the magic there was, in the good times anyways, was very positive, was very supportive, was only used for augmenting the peace and manifesting things for yourself if you wanted to. So there wasn't much dark magic in those times anyways. Because Atlantis was such a big continent, there was enough space for the different starseed species to create their own places of living. In the north, I saw forests with villages of fauns. The fauns who are half goat from the hip down and half human. Yes, I actually saw them. They lived there. And they lived there in a very natural way, in the forests, in the way that they wanted to. And they would interact with the other Atlanteans, but they would be more secluded. They would like that kind of living. I also saw in the early times of Atlantis, dragon beings. And this is only what I saw yesterday, recently. I saw that there were dragon beings and they like to stay a little bit away, a little bit further in the north. They would come and, of course, intermingle and share their knowledge, but they prefer to have their own space and not be in these human-based towns that were a little more dense. Also, the horse beings and unicorn beings, they did also like their own space. So they tended to have areas where they lived more, even though they did intermingle. And that all worked very, very well before Atlantis fell. Now, I haven't really gone that much into the fall of Atlantis. What I do believe is that because Atlantis was so open in the universe, it was such a beloved place, it was truly a place that everybody wanted to be part of. And Atlantis actually drew a lot of starseeds to Earth. That was the start of a huge influx of starseeds incarnating because they wanted to be part of this really special and unique intergalactic incarnated community. What I get a sense of is that Atlantis was infiltrated by negative beings who also wanted to incarnate there. And I feel that it was infiltrated in a very subtle way at first, with negative souls incarnating, masking themselves in a very deceptive way. I also feel that those negative souls first came there invisibly, that they could not be seen. They had shields around them. So they very, very slowly started to infiltrate because they saw the potential of power. They saw the potential of everything that was developing, and they wanted to take that for themselves. They wanted to grab that and wanted to benefit from that. And yes, I feel the draconians, who I talk about a lot recently, it seems, They did infiltrate Atlantis, and they played a huge part in the fall and destruction of that beautiful civilization, as in so many other places in the universe as well. Now, besides for that main city, there of course were other cities in Atlantis, and most of them were built in this circular fashion. And there is another beautiful city which I saw, and this was in the very southeastern end of the continent, in a peninsula where there were many little outlets and many little islands. And this was the most beautiful city in Atlantis. It was built half over the ocean and half on land, with many bridges and towers, and with just such a stunning, beautiful, amazing scenery. And the first time I went there, it was with a client who was actually a planner and builder in that city. So when I went in, I felt the immense pride and joy in that city that that person felt. So he was actually in charge of planning the city, building bridges to make sure that it served its inhabitants in the best way. And this immense love and pride for this city and the whole country is what really astonished me. So I feel that you who have incarnated there may feel so strongly about Atlantis, because it really was one of the most beautiful, highly evolved, harmonious, and diverse places in the universe, in the whole galaxy, right? So because this place was so high vibrational, it was a little different than today. It was still third dimensional, but the vibration was different. It wasn't as dense. It was a very highly evolved, very light third dimension. I think there's different layers to the dimensions as well, because here I felt that the veil between the different dimensions was thinner. The forgetting wasn't so great. If you were born as an Atlantean, you remembered, you knew who you were at soul level. You were able to very quickly recover the memories of your past lives, of your starseed lives. So people wouldn't live with that fear of death, with that great forgetting, with the terror and the horror. There wasn't any of that. It was a very, very enlightened place, and it was an absolutely amazing place to live. And that city right there by the ocean was called Shambhala. It was called Shambhala. And I know this is a name that different places have been called, but I feel this is where it came from. And that name is also in our collective consciousness. So when you hear that name and you imagine that city, and this reminds me of that a little bit, like the waters look like this. Here, I'm going to show you. See what I'm looking at right here? This is underwater. This is reminding me of that city. The whole scenery, everything is reminding me of that beautiful city of Shambhala. And I invite you to call in the memories, to call in the light codes, because I feel those of you who are watching, you have been there. You have been in Shambhala. You have been in that other city. You have had many incarnations there in Atlantis. And I feel that you were able to truly step into your incarnation, living out your divine gifts, being who you are at soul level, and really embodying the best version of yourself. And that's what a lot of people who I've channeled for did. They were able to live the best version of their own self in Atlantis, because that's what that place was created for. That's what the place was seeded for. The great experiment of self-expression and interconnectedness with all the different souls from this galaxy and beyond. So Atlantis brings together unity consciousness, brings together the concept that we all are one. It shows us that yes, it is possible to live together with different types of peoples and souls and species and forms and shapes. Now, spirituality was very important in Atlantis. I saw many places for meditation, for worship. There are many different spiritual streams. And I feel that in Atlantis, you were allowed to practice whatever spirituality you wanted and believed in. Many of us spiritual seekers were priests and priestesses there, and in Atlantis it was possible to go for a few years to explore spirituality and then come back and do something else. So society wasn't rigid at all regarding spirituality as well. Also, art and culture were highly developed. That big plaza in the main city that I see so often, there were so many cultural festivals, music, art, dance, anything that you can imagine. And on those days when there were festivals, you could really see all the different creatures come in and participate. So the Atlanteans loved their festivals because it was an opportunity to truly mingle with very different kinds of creatures. Atlantis held a very special kind of magic. I feel that time was a little different in Atlantis. Since the dimension was very light, wasn't as dense as now, time was able to be stretched, compromised, and manipulated a little more than here. So I feel that time and space and reality of Atlantis was a little bit different, was a little bit more like it is in higher dimensions. I feel that Atlantis actually existed in a higher dimension, in between the third and the fifth dimension, at its highest point, that it was actually ascending as a little kind of place by itself on this earth because of all the beings that were bringing so much light and so many light codes into that civilization. So there are certain eras and times on earth where the dimensions were a little bit different. That's why we have like a little bit of a magical collective memory or feel associated with certain places. Lemuria was another place. I feel some areas in Tibet, some areas in South America in old civilizations, and also when you think about Avalon, that also was a place that was very magical and where the dimensions and time and space were a little different than we experience it today. So I hope that little introduction to Atlantis has helped you remember, and I invite you to go into your own meditation and call forth memories of Atlantis, and you will be able to go there and see and feel and hear what you experienced in your lives. And you know, I recommend you ask for a positive lifetime in Atlantis, for something that will help you in your journey today, in your ascension path today, because I know that lots of us also lived in the detrimental times when Atlantis was falling, but I think it's always good to concentrate on the positive, and maybe the fall of Atlantis is food for another video and for another time. But right now I feel for us as a collective, it is really important to tune in to catch those light codes of Atlantis when it was basically ascending, when there was so much unity, when there was heart and mind, technology and love, where everything was working in perfect harmony. Okay, so let me know what you think. Let me know if you have had memories of Atlantis, perhaps as a different kind of physical being, not just a human being. It would really interest me. So thank you so much for sharing this beautiful scenery with me. Love you guys. Natasha, mwah, Cosmic Empress. And once more, the ocean has encroached. The tide is coming. You see, my tripod is standing in water. This was dry just now. Just a last shot of this beautiful scenery for you. Absolutely gorgeous.